All right, guys, this is episode 40 something or other.
What is that screaming? You have a
What is that,
pterodactyl over there?
You could hear that still?
Is that a pterodactyl?
You gotta be kidding me. I don't know what's happening today.
Who's running your house?
I don't know what's happening here. This is episode 40 something. I don't even know where we're at. I think 44 or so. But we have Alex Melikian, New York State finalist, section champ, Binghamton wrestler, captain, just a good leader. Holy cow, I'm gonna lose my mind in a second. All that good stuff. But Alex, just how I start every interview, how'd you get into wrestling in the first place?
I got into wrestling because my brother got into it. And then he was at Fordham Prep, and they started like a wrestling club there. And I was like 11 years old or so, and I had a lot of energy. And my mom was like, it'd be great if we got Alex into wrestling too. So they would put me on the train, and they'd send me down to Fordham, and I'd get off, and I'd go to the high school practices, and I'd wrestle with them, and then I'd come home with them. So that's kind of how I got started. Honestly, my mom wanted me to get into it. My brother was like, you should do it. So I started doing it. And then I found out I really liked it. And so I just kept doing it.
That's interesting.
Did you say what grade you were in?
What's that?
Did you say what grade you were in?
Oh, I was like 6th grade. I just entered middle school.
So it was a little bit of a later start than maybe some of our typical, superstar Division I wrestling type guys.
Yeah, no, me and my brother both started late. I think he started when he was in like 12. He started in modified, and then again I started when I was 11. So
how was your success, Alex, when you were in youth wrestling? Because I met you when you were probably 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if you were frequenting like youth tournaments. What did you do?
I don't think I really went to a whole ton of youth tournaments. I think when I was in middle school, maybe I went to a couple tournaments, and they threw me into a couple high school tournaments, honestly. I think the Fordham Prep team went to a couple off-season tournaments, and they're like, this kid has a full mustache and mutton chops as a 12-year-old. Everyone thinks she's 15 anyways, so let's just wrestle her. So I was wrestling like 17-year-old kids, and I just started wrestling last year, and they'd be like, "All right, Alex, just go out and have fun," and I'd be like, "All right." And so I don't remember. I mean, I remember getting my ass kicked as much as I won. So I honestly don't think about too many wins or losses in youth wrestling, honestly, about like that.
No, I don't think you should. But Coach, I don't remember when you first met Alex, but I know I met Alex at the club when he was pretty young, 6th or 7th grade. I don't know if you were in 7th grade yet, Alex, or you were still 6th grade when you first joined.
I think I first came to the club actually when I was in 8th grade.
Well, so you're a little older.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, and Alex, I want you to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
You were a tough guy. You wanted to get better. You worked your tail off. How was that like ingrained in you at such an early age? Like, because you were never not ready to go. What was that about you that you were able to do that?
I thought about that a little bit. I mean, I think it was like my family. Like, I think growing up, I had a lot of family stories. Like my family, my ancestors, like my great grandparents and my grandparents, were survivors of genocide. And so I grew up with those stories, and those stories kind of like were ingrained into me as a young kid that they could get through that. I could get through anything too. That, I come from a tough line of people, and I'm a tough person too. And I'm not going to ever quit because they never quit. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. But you also have that other side of you, which is just a great, great person.
I mean, that's because I was surrounded by great people that taught me how to, that really encouraged me and, set great examples for me.
I mean, I think that's a great answer all the way around. And guys, if you're listening, because Alex is such a good interview and a guy to get, if you hear that sound, I don't know, my laptop keeps making a weird sound. I keep pushing it down. That's what I'm doing with my fingers, if you guys could tell. And whenever I push my laptop down, it stops. But if I loosen up, it kind of keeps going. So
why don't you put a paperweight on it?
Ooh, you smart son of a gun. But anyway, that's why he's a big-time guy. Let me see if this helps.
What do you got? You got a blender app?
You know what happened? Not that anybody's interested that they want to hear Alex Melikian speak and they don't want to hear about this, but I broke my screen. Well, actually, my dog cracked my screen. And one of my coworkers knows how to do that type of stuff, like replace screens and stuff. So he replaced my screen. I ordered one on Amazon, and ever since you replaced it, it's been making this weird sound. So I don't know what
kind of
you better be careful. You might want to bury that in the backyard.
Oh, this thing might just blow up on us. But
You sure that wasn't the first screen he replaced?
it is what it is. It could have
He
been.
paid for his education.
Yeah.
His name is Anthony as well, but so who knows what's going on with that guy. But I had to go off topic. So Alex, that was an excellent answer. Like I think, like I knew a little bit about your family history, but
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense too. Like I know that you guys are close to your culture in a sense, and you guys you and Sam both pay attention to that, which is great. I never really put it together as that's why you guys were both so tough, because you guys are both really tough guys. But to like piggyback off what Coach Bella said, you're also a really good guy. So I think you have both best of both worlds there. But I remember when Alex first started really getting serious at the club. It could have been your 8th grade, it could have been your 9th grade. When did you get your shoulder surgery?
It was summer going into my freshman year, I think.
So it was like that first summer he was there.
Yeah.
And Alex was like that kid at the club that would always work hard. But I'm like, dude, leave me alone. Like I'd be like, leave him practice. Like, hey, coach, you want to do this? Hey, coach. I'm like, sure. And DeBellis, you remember the old side of the club where it used to be, where the weight room was down there and like the parents could sit on top in that area?
Yeah.
So Alex, one practice, I'll never forget, he goes, Coach, I'm going to get my stance, and I'm going to walk in my stance down the mat. And I want you just to pull on my head as I'm walking down in my stance. I said, sure. He had a sling on and pulling this 8th grader's head. I'm like, who is this kid? Like, what is wrong with him? And, now he's Alex, and he's accomplished so much. And I think Alex is the prime example of somebody that it wasn't easy for. He had to work his butt off to get where he got, right? Nothing was given to Alex. He had to train, sacrifice, work. He had to work at John's to go to John's. Like there were so many things that he had to do to put himself in the position that he's in now, getting a good education at a really good school. I don't know. I was talking a little bit about that, like transition of now I'm in the club.
Right.
I know I have the opportunity here, but I have to work my tail off to achieve my goals. Like, how is that day-to-day process for you?
I'm trying to think about it. There was never really an option in my head to give up or ever to not go hard in my head. Like once I realized that I could work hard and I could go 100 miles an hour and I could beat people by just outworking them, I was like, holy crap, that's awesome. And because I was never a super skilled athlete. Like when I was a kid and we used to play like wiffle ball with my friends, they'd give me extra strikes because I sucked. They'd give me like 10 strikes because I couldn't hit the ball ever. But I was, I could run hard and I played really hard, but I just wasn't a super gifted athlete. So in like wrestling, when I learned that like I could work really hard at this and I could get strong and I could get fast and I could learn this technique and apply myself, and then I could win and I can beat other kids that might be more talented than me, but they don't want to work as hard as me. I was like, that's awesome. And that was my thought every day is I can get better. And I would used to see kids that were better than me. And my goal was every day, like, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to get better than you. And I'm going to beat you because I work harder than you. I'm like, you might be good and you might be kind of cruising, but I'm like, eventually if I keep going, I'm going to catch up to you and I'm going to get you.
And there's endless guys that you caught up to, I feel like. You were the little guy. You were the little guy on the totem pole when you first got there. And by your senior year, you were the big dog. Coach, do you remember when you first met Alex, or not really? It's a little hard to go back.
I think it was a Greeley practice when you used to bring some guys in.
Yeah.
He became one of the guys.
Yeah, Alex was always like, and he was great. And the thing and we'll touch on it a little bit more as we go, but Alex, you're going to have to remind me of some stuff because I remember you very much as training in the room. I remember you a lot for the off-season stuff. I have a harder time remembering your results. I remember your senior year results very well because that's what's easy to remember, right? That's the most recent. You won sectionals. You made the finals. Those are easy to remember. I know you lost to Evan Frank, I believe, in the finals. You went back and forth there, and Evan was a great wrestler too. But it's a little hard for me to remember your whole trajectory. So freshman year, I'm pretty sure you were out the whole season.
Right. Freshman year, I was out. I couldn't wrestle because my arm was in the sling. So I was still just practicing. And so I was practicing, and then I got healed. So then I was able to wrestle my sophomore year. My sophomore year, I took second at Catholic States. And since Catholic States is a little differently, I didn't get a wild card or anything to go to States. And then my junior year, I placed at, Eastern States. I think I took fifth or so. And then I took second again at Catholic, so I didn't go to States. And then my senior year, I won sections, took second at States. And I think I All-American at Flow later that year too. So my senior year is kind of more I hit my stride for achieving more of my goals. I think a lot of my success was in the practice room. Like during the seasons, I wasn't hitting those big things, but like in the practice room, I was going toe to toe with like Brett Perry and like other really good quality guys. I remember that.
You know what's interesting, Coach, about what you just said was when he was in Catholic states, right? He took second twice. You don't really get a wild card. When he came over to Section 1, and
He had to win sections to go to state.
I mean, maybe he would have gotten lucky with some power points from Section 1.
Yeah.
But like, it was nothing was set in stone for a two-time finalist. If Alex came in third 3 times, nothing was set in stone. So we'll get a little more into that as we go. Alex, I don't want to jump away to your senior year. But I'll ask you now, it doesn't have to be only your year, just in general. How did you cope with pressure? Like, those types of pressure?
Was that? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, bud.
That's okay.
Pressure. How'd you cope with it?
I didn't really think about it. I mean, like in my mind, again, like there was no option to lose. So I guess there was pressure on me, but I didn't really think of the pressure. I just thought I can't lose. I'm gonna win, and that's the only thing I felt, and that's the only thing I thought. So I didn't feel that, because I realized like once you start feeling that pressure of what if I lose, what if I mess up, what if this happens, what if that, that's when doubt sinks in. You don't wrestle well. That's when you don't do well. And so I remember it was just solid. It was just a solid feeling. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna wrestle, and I'm gonna win. And that was it.
You wrestled great, and you wrestled a great competitor. Am I right on this? You went to 3 high schools.
Yeah.
Lakeland.
I went to Fordham Prep. I went to,
Yeah.
and then I went to
Lakeland.
Lakeland. Yeah. It's always fun telling people that, because they immediately think I'm a bad kid and they think I'm a degenerate, and I'm like, no, I swear to God, no. So I went to Fordham, and then John Deagle, who's the club coach of now Empire, was the coach at Kennedy, and he was like, why don't you just come to Kennedy? He goes, you can wrestle for me. He goes, it'll be easier for you to work at the club. He goes, you'll be right next to the club, because the Kennedy was a mile away. And he's like, we can work out. You can spend more time there. And I was like, and I'll be your coach all the time. And I was like, all right, that sounds great. I know a lot of people probably think I'm crazy having Deagle as my coach 24/7. But I did that for 2 years, and then my senior year, Kennedy stopped giving me financial aid, so I was like, all right, I'll go to public school. I don't care. So, and then I went to Lakeland, and I wrestled there my final year.
And not much changed. You were still at the club all the time, wrestling and stuff, and I don't think that really made or break you. But what's funny about, sometimes I'd be driving to practice, and I'd see Alex on the side of the road walking. Because Kennedy was so close, but you see him with his book bag on, like walking down the street. I'm like, oh, there's Alex. And, maybe talk a little bit about this, Alex, because I find this interesting, because Coach Bellis did point it out, because you're such a good guy. There's very few times I could think of in my 5 or 6 years of coaching you that you came in with a bad attitude. Good guy, good kid, always a good kid, still to this day. Like, we spoke on the phone a couple weeks ago. Just good, like a good kid, talking to some guy next door, like, being super polite, calling him sir, and just being like a good guy. How do you do that, right? Because I feel like me and you are similar in that sense, where I try to be nice when I could be nice, and I try to be polite when I could be polite. But out of all the kids that I've coached, the amount that I coached you, they had off days. People had days when they came in and they were in a bad mood, or they were pissy because they were cutting weight, or whatever it may have been. And I can't, right now off the top of my head, I cannot think of one day that you came in that room and I was like, man, Alex is in a bad mood today. Man, Alex is having a rough time. Man, Alex can't handle it. And, not to get personal or anything, but you deal with things maybe you had a little bit more to deal with maybe than some typical kids had to deal with in a sense. So like, how'd you do that? Like, how'd you keep that mentality? Because I think that's super impressive. And at the end of the day, to me, that's more important than the results.
I'm trying to think about that. I always kind of thought like things could always be worse for me. And I'm like, things could always be worse, and I'm very blessed to be where I was. I had, people that cared about me. I had a place to be where I was happy and I felt good. I'm trying to think. Like, I just always tried to look for the positive in whatever was going on. I tried to take a lesson out of it and learn something good about it. So, even if I had a bad day and somebody beat the crap out of me, like, what did I learn wrong? What did I do wrong in my wrestling? Like, because if I was weak in a spot in my wrestling, that means I can fix it, and that's a good day. because I learned something where I was weak, and now I can get stronger because of it. And I just thought, having a bad attitude just doesn't get you anywhere. It's a slippery slope, because once you start saying this sucks, that sucks, then everything sucks. And then you have no motivation, and then you can't get anything done. You have to constantly, you have to constantly thinking like things are good and I have to keep getting better. If that makes sense.
That's a phenomenal answer. I think we discussed this before, and we don't have to get deep into it.
Yeah.
But like, I do think that you should end up coaching one day, regardless of what capacity that's in, because of that mentality alone. I think will help a lot of kids, because a lot of people, adults, can't see what you just said. Right, like looking on the bright side, seeing what should I be grateful for? I'm lucky to have this. I'm lucky to have this opportunity. To be able to think like that at a young age is very impressive. And I think it, obviously has to do with your mom and your family and things like that. But I also think it's you. I think that's just who you are, and it's ingrained in you. And I think that's really important, because for the people that are listening to this, it's real. Like, that really is Alex, right? We're not joking around. We're not adding to this. He's always was. That guy. And coach, what's funny is Alex is the type of guy, he's saying like, oh, well, I'll learn. If I had a bad day and I was getting beat up, I'll learn. Coach, this man would not quit. You get taken down a bunch of times, you're like, can we go another? All right, Alex. Can we go another? Sure, Alex. Alex, I'm tired. Oh, one more. Did you love it? Did you love wrestling at that time? Or is it more because it's like two things. I knew you wanted to get better for sure.
Yeah.
But were you really enjoying it, or was it more that your mentality and work ethic, like, I gotta get better? Or were you having fun with it? Like, what was happening in your mind during all that?
I think it's just because of my personality. I have fun when I'm in a hard situation and I push through it. Like, getting something that's hard for me is rewarding in its own way. So, like, is it fun? Necessarily, do you like getting taken down 1,000 times and feeling exhausted and feeling tired? Not necessarily, but like, do I kind of love it and like fighting through it and then being able to take you down? Like, when you beat you would put a bunch of beat downs on me. And then I remember clearly, like, I was able to one day like pick you up and I double and I put you into the mat. Like, you remember that? And then you put the beat down back on me after that. But like, I still remember that feeling of being able to picking you up and putting you in the mat and being like, that was a great, like, I love that. And, the working towards that and that competitive spirit in me to get there is something I love. So, while, it might not be fun all the time, that process, but like getting better and being able to score those moments and being able to push through it and just like, knowing that you're going to get better is a great feeling to me.
I love that. What's really funny, Coach? Coach Cabellis knows, I still joke around. I know about the guy I used to be, right? High school guys take me down here and there. I'm still, I have the high school guys, I'm still the toughest in the room, but but I give up scores, which I never used to at all. Like, you would snake one, like Brett Perry would snake one here and there, but I wasn't giving them up. Like, now I'll give up a takedown like a practice, like, I'm still that guy, but when college kids come back, I'm not messing with some of them. I'm like, I'm good, I'm fine. Yeah. You guys are under the impression that I really don't want that to happen, but deep down, when you get that takedown, I'm like, we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Should get this takedown. Now I'm a competitive guy. I'm still gonna think I'm old. Like, oh crap, I can't do this anymore. That's two different things. But like, there is a little bit of like proudness when they get that first takedown too.
Yeah.
What drives me crazy is when the whole room goes, oh.
KD, baby.
Yeah.
That's KD special right there.
Yeah.
I don't remember the first time you officially scored, but I remember you scoring. I remember you being tough. I remember being like, oh shit, like Alex. Like, every time I have to wrestle with Alex, I need to tie my shoes tight. Like, here we go. Like, we're getting after it now. I remember that shift happening for you. So, what I want to talk to you about, Alex, is because you were very close to John and I.
What was that?
Very close to John and I. That thing, does that sound crazy still or no?
What?
That weird sound it's making, is it crazy still?
It sounds better now.
I keep pressing down. Hopefully it's
okay.
But I'm going to have really strong grip after this episode. You were really close with John and I, but we both are totally different people. Similar idea. We both care about the kids. We both want you guys to get better at wrestling. How, I never really talked about this in the podcast. I think you're the perfect guy to talk about it with a little bit. How did you kind of handle two coaches that were polar opposite coaches? in a sense?
Well, I kind of got different things out of either of you, you know. John
Joe,
was,
Joe. Yeah.
wait 1 second.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'd come to you a lot. Like, you were more personable sometimes for me to reach out with and talk to, like, about a little more personable things sometimes like that. Um, especially if I needed like someone to help lift me up. Sometimes John was just his own type of animal. Trying to explain John Deagle to people sometimes is hard. John was always there to make me feel good and always make me feel like crap at the same time. Like, dealing with two coaches, I got different things out of you guys. It's kind of hard to explain. For me, I'm trying to think.
You don't have to go crazy. I mean, I just think I almost think it's a good thing that we're so different. I think if we both were the same exact person, I don't think we would be such a good combo together.
Right. I think
it is good that we're different. We have some similarities. We both are hard nosed. We both want to be tough. We both want to work hard.
Right.
Maybe our approach to certain things are just different. But if we were the same person, maybe you wouldn't get something out of me that you got out of me, and maybe you wouldn't have got something different out of John that you got out of John. I think it's good that we're opposite in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm trying to think, like, John could get me riled up and make me want to run through a wall and rip someone's head off because, that's kind of his personality, to be on me in practice, calling me names and everything else like that. And then when he would push me to that breaking point where, I'd be like, I could really feel myself like wanting to snap on him or something like that. And then you were very good at, when I was getting pushed hard at being able to ease it back a little bit. So I was so motivated to work hard and get better, but I wasn't maybe being as hard as myself or letting sometimes a little bit of the negativity get to me.
Dude, you know what's interesting with what Alex is saying? I feel like me and you have the same thing going on at Greeley. You know what I mean? Like, we're very similar, that we both care a lot about the kids. I think me and you might be a little more similar than me and John, but we do have differences. Every once in a while, I probably fly off the seat of my pants where it's like, man, you're probably losing your mind, and D has to kind of reel me back in a little bit. But again, I think that makes me and Coach Sabelis like a good group together because we're not the same person. And I can learn a lot from him. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm probably the best assistant wrestling coach in the whole country.
You are the best, and you should be the head coach, but you are the best.
Yeah, no thanks. You got it, Pally.
Actually, you know what? It's better for liability reasons that I stay head coach.
Nah, you're doing it.
Fire me.
Yeah,
Fire me.
I love it. But
no, we just need more kids.
More kids. You know what? I'm telling you, when Alex graduates, we need to talk to him because this is the type of guy we need in the room. Alex is the guy.
Listen, they have every opportunity in the world right now to get better. Alex will be there anytime we ask him to be
But
there.
you know what? And Alex, and I don't want to get too far off topic because I feel like I'm all over the place. This thing's making sounds. We're having a time here. I hope we give Alex the justice he deserves. Yeah. But I feel like Alex is the type of guy to graduate and get with us in a sense because we're very similar. He's going to be the 23-year-old version of me, but smarter. Well, Alex is a smart guy. He's a bio major, all this stuff. Like he's a smart dude, but he works. Like, he wants to he'll get the kids better. He'll take them to practice. He'll get Nikki DeBellis into shape. He'll get Nikki ready to work.
We'll get him working.
Tell him to put that donut down and do some push-ups.
Listen, Nikki, you can eat the donut, brother, as long as you do 50 push-ups after.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Nikki!
He's gone. Don't worry. I'll get him back. I'll leave him right here like a trap for a mouse.
We'll just make sure to yell at him real loud.
So, Alex, here's a question for you because you probably have a better memory than me and stuff like this. Do you remember, and I've asked a couple kids, I asked Adam this question. I forgot who else I asked this question, but it was more the kids that were at the club all the time. Do you remember like a workout or a specific day that was just torture for you, that was like brutal? Can you remember something that was really, really
fun?
I got a couple to hear these stories.
There's a couple. I mean, all right, well, I'll give you a funny story I think you'll like.
Okay.
Well, I don't really remember this well, but Mr. Perry.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah, and so this was probably my sophomore year after I lost at Catholic States, and I lost to this kid because of legs, right?
Yeah.
And so we're at John's barn, and John was doing a private lesson, and Mr. Perry walks in, for take his son Chris in for a private, and he sees me and my brother wrestling, and he sees Sam's on top of me with double legs in, punching me in the head. And he's like, because I lost on legs. And Mr. Perry goes, but the craziest thing was, he goes, you're on bottom getting punched in the head. And he goes, so you're just grabbing the wrist and you're slowly working your way out. He goes, you weren't bad at all. He's like, you're literally getting hit in the head and you're just so calmly working your way out. And you get off bottom, and then your brother goes back down to bottom again. And you went back down to bottom. He threw his legs in and kept getting hit in the head. And he just went, whoop, all right. So
hysterical. And it's so funny that Mr. Perry's still at the club and Chris is still a senior, and it's insane that went back that far.
Oh my God, yeah.
What else you got? You got any other good ones?
I got a couple good ones. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I remember when John used to make us have to like climb the rope and get takedowns.
That one comes up all the time.
There was one. I think I was with Johnny Garcia and Brett Perry or something like that.
Right.
And we had to. It was 15 workouts we had to do. So it was like climb the rope, get a takedown, and you had to do it 5 times or so. And then you had to run a sprint and get a takedown. And then it was like 20 burpees and then get a takedown. And it was a total of 15. And then we each had to cycle through it. And I remember that being like awful for the neck. That was like ingrained into my memory to this day of like climbing a rope and then like having to get a takedown. And then if you didn't get the takedown, you had to climb the rope again because you went back to -1.
So Alex, that's like, you're like the third person that did, and somebody else brought that one up. Maybe Grippy.
Yeah.
Somebody else brought that workout up. It's brutal. But you know what's crazy is that's like a substantial one because you can remember exactly what happened, right?
Oh, I got another one.
Oh, God. What's that?
Airdyne sprint, Airdyne minute sprint, get a takedown.
Oh, my God.
I remember that one. I remember those. Those were bad too.
You know, but those are like, I feel like those type of workouts you can remember because it's a thing, right? It's like, I'm climbing the rope, I'm going to take down. I'm doing Airdyne sprint, I'm doing a takedown. But it's a little bit hard to remember those workouts where it's like you're wrestling live with me for 30 minutes and then we're going to fight for an hour. Like, you know, all these crazy things that you do, but it's just like it's not in order. Right. There's days that we used to friggin' just go at it after it. And the whole club, like I quit matches and things like that. Where that's why I think that's the biggest difference with Empire and other clubs is, you know, now we're having a little bit of a problem with it because we have younger kids in the club and they need to get a little tougher. But we used to out-tough everybody. If Alex Melikian was down by a point or two going into the third period, Alex Melikian was winning that match. You know, Jacob Ferreira was down by a point or two in the third period, and that's like 3 or 4 years later, right? Same idea, he's going to win that match. Now, you know, I don't know as much. We kind of have to kind of get back into that a little bit. But, you know, one thing I want to talk about is your relationship with Matt Kelly. You know, and we'll get more into like your senior year because we didn't really get there. We talked about it a little bit, but you know, Alex, as I said before, is a very good kid. He took a liking. I don't really know, to be honest, how that connection even started between you and Matt. Now I know that, like, as you got older, how it kind of kept going. But how did you end up kind of taking Matt Kelly under your wing? Like, how did that even start?
I think I got asked to watch him at a camp. I think his mom had asked. She was like, "Hey, like, you know, my son's going to this camp, like it's a sleepaway camp, like would you mind keeping an eye on him, like he kind of looks up to you?" And I was like, yeah, sure. So like I roomed with him and like kind of kept an eye on him and made sure. And then I kind of just always kept an eye on him from then on out. Like his mom would ask me, how's he doing, and you know, he was always asking me about wrestling, and so we kind of just always worked together, and I made sure that he was getting better because he wanted to get better, and I saw a lot of myself in him. And I thought he was a great kid. And I was like, and, you know, I don't know. He's just a great guy, and he works hard, and he wanted to be good.
He followed you all the way to Binghamton.
He did.
He's in the same school, same team with Schreiber.
He's Matt Schreiber. Oh, my God. I love that kid.
Love it. I love that.
Now, you're the captain up there, aren't you, Alex?
I believe so. We haven't really had a captain, like, voting for captains this year. I think I was captain last 2 years or so.
That's great.
But I have a question for Coach Sabelis. You know, you look at Alex, right? Coach, his senior year, tough, state finalist, hardworking, good kid. His senior year, I think Matt Kelly was probably like an 8th grader at that time, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably an 8th grader. So Matt Kelly was probably an 8th grader. Good kid.
Yeah.
Worked hard, but goofball, nowhere near what he became And Coach DeBus, I would say that, kind of following Alex's footsteps, Matt became that guy.
Yeah.
Do you think Coach DeBus, like a guy that's been around wrestling for as much as you've been around it, that having somebody to look up to like Alex was instrumental for him to kind of believe in himself? Like, hey, I could do this too. Alex did it like this. Maybe I could do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the map was laid out, so all you had to do is follow. And if he got confused, he can call Alex. And Alex was always there for him. So.
Well, I mean, I had a ton of role models too. I think that's kind of how this sport works. I had my older brother. I mean, to this day, I wrestle a match and I get off the mat and I have 5 text messages from him analyzing my match. Like, yeah, you did this right. You did this wrong. I mean, I had him and, like I had him as my role model too, like watching him work hard. And I was like, I can do that. Like he can do it. I can push myself like that. I had older guys in the club too, like Joe Mastro. I remember I used to bug Joe Mastro, like, hey, Joe, like, can you wrestle with me for 5 minutes? And he'd be like, all right, Alex, I'll beat your ass for 5 minutes. And then it's over, okay? And I go, all right, cool. So, I mean,
Joe, did Joe go to Binghamton too?
Joe did go to Binghamton. Unfortunately,
then he went to NC State, right?
No, he went to NC State, and then he transferred to Binghamton. And then his career was cut short, unfortunately.
Concussions.
Concussions and a car accident. So.
Oh, no.
So
he did a couple camps with us over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, Joe's a great guy. He's a great wrestler.
I should get Joe. Joe, you know what it is? Joe, Alex is an old timer now for the club, really. Think about it. Not really, but like for my age, I've been coaching for 10 years. So Alex was there when I first started, pretty much. But guys like Joe are even older than him. But that was like my first crew, like Scotty Wims, Joe, Sam. Like those were the first couple of guys that I really even messed with. Joe Mastro, funny story about Joe Mastro. He wore my wrestling shoes at States.
Really?
Yeah.
Took third.
He took third, and he lost in the
opening round.
And me and him talked, and I told him because my senior year I took fourth, and my junior year I didn't place, and I lost in the quarters, and I wrestled, but I didn't wrestle. I kind of tanked in the wrestlebacks. And I told him, I'm like, that was one of the biggest regrets of my life. And we talked about how much that bothers me to this, at that point, 7, 8 years ago, how much it bothered me to that day. And Joe said after that, that talk kind of helped him because he stormed through the wrestlebacks and took third. Where, now he could, unfortunately he has his concussions and his back injuries and things like that, but he could sit back and look and say, hey, I lost a tough match. And the toughest guy takes third sometimes. I mean, that takes guts to do what he did. So, big on him, and that's big on Alex as a young guy. And that was typically what you did, Alex. And obviously you know this, but, for the people that are listening, Alex would typically look for the bigger, the better, the older guys in the room, and he would bug them into submission until they would help him. And Alex has this personality, and you probably could tell a little bit from these interviews. Alex has these personalities where, even if you're annoyed at him, you can't say no to him in a sense because he's such a good guy. Like, he's such a good kid. Like, you want to help him. Like, you could be exhausted. There was days that I remember off the top of my head that I was walking out like dead tired.
Oh, I remember that.
Alex like, can we go some more? And I'm like, yes.
You'd be walking out the door with your shoes, and I'd be like, "Oh man, you're leaving?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, Alex, I gotta go. You're like, I have to go see my, your girlfriend at the time, I think, or your fiance was kid."
Yeah. Oh my god. Now we're married with a child.
Yeah, you're like, I've got to go to dinner with her, Alex. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna hold you tomorrow. We'll wrestle tomorrow. And you're like, all right.
Yeah, and we definitely would. But Alex is that guy, and I think, Alex reminds me a lot, and Coach Cabela's, tell me if you agree with this. He reminds me a lot of Jacob Ferreira with the first one. Jacob Ferreira was his own person, but it was 4 years after Alex, where they both weren't, they weren't not athletic, but like Alex said, he wasn't a super athlete. They weren't athletically gifted to the extreme, but they wanted to be better, and they wanted to wrestle. They knew that there was a goal in hand, and like you said, Coach DeBellis, they had every opportunity. Alex being in that club, he knew he had these opportunities at his fingertips, and he didn't waste them. He didn't waste them. A lot of kids, and Alex had to work for his opportunities, right? Alex was on the cleaning crew for John. Alex worked for John. Alex busted his butt at that club, for John. And other kids go to the club, and mommy and daddy will pay X amount of money, which is not cheap, and they don't take advantage of it, right? But a guy like Alex did. A guy like Jacob did. And to me, those are my favorite stories, right? Like, I love hearing about a kid that wins national championships, and he's so good, and this, that, and the third. Of course, I want our kids to win, right?
Yeah.
But I love to see a kid understand that I'm in a situation that I could better myself. Let me take advantage of that. And Alex, Jacob, and a bunch of others, but those two predominantly come to my mind for guys that really just, stepped up. But Alex, one thing I want to talk about how you're a good guy. Coach, you know how we do the trip to Greeley comes to my school every year, right? And does that thing. This year, obviously, it's going to be a little different because of COVID and whatnot. But, while we were talking, I didn't even think of this before the interview, Alex. I was just thinking of it now as we were talking. So what I did was I used to be at two different sites in my school. I used to be at the middle school that Greeley goes to every year and gives the presents to and does all that stuff, which is a great thing that Coach Ellis was gung-ho about from day one because he's the best. And then I also used to be at the elementary school. And I used to feel bad because I was at the elementary school and we did so much for the middle school. I'm like, what can I do for these elementary? Can you hear me, Alex?
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
It's all good.
I was saying that, I was at the middle school. We were doing so much for the really guys there. And I'm also at the elementary, and I felt bad that we couldn't maybe do as much for them as we were doing for the middle school kids. So I'm like, you know what? Let me try my best. I'll get a bunch of presents. If these kids could bring some, no problem. And we'll do it with the Empire kids. And the first group that I got to go to the elementary school was Alex, I think Adam, maybe DeNardo, and Justin Lopez.
It was also, I think it was also Matt Kelly. I remember Matt Kelly was there.
And Matt Kelly came, and he was like a 8th grader.
I think Matt Schreiber might have been there too. I'm not 100% sure on Schreiber, yeah.
So see, but like what I was going to get to on that is though that, these kids, they respect me, they listen to me and stuff like that. But, some coach comes up to them and says, hey man, do you want to come to the South Bronx for a day and just hang out with a bunch of elementary school kids? Like what kid's going to say, yeah? Luckily I had a couple kids that said, yeah, and they all were really good guys too and good wrestlers. But, the difference with Alex is when he said, yeah, and this is not a knock at DeNardo did great and Justin Lopez was great, but Alex was playing with the kids, right? Alex was helping the teachers and the paras set things up. And, what did you get out of that experience, Alex? Did you enjoy, like, that whole thing? Or was it, like, was it out of your comfort zone? Like, what was that like for you?
I just kind of, I saw places where I could help and do things for people. And I just kind of found those people that needed it. And I just decided to do it. I thought it was a really great experience. I wish I could have done it every year, honestly, and like, I wish I could have gone every Christmas and helped out.
Home, we'll get you down there. But, he did great with that. That was awesome. I mean, I love that, right? Because I talked about that. I don't know. Well, you said you only watched mine so far, but if you watch Matt Kelly's and AJ's, we talked about how, the Greeley kids, I'm only at the middle school, I'm not at the elementary school anymore. So the Greeley kids all still come to the middle school. But the last couple of years, I've had AJ and I've had Matt Kelly come those. And, I don't know, maybe it's me being kind of selfish for my own students, but, like, the kids that will step up and do that hold a more special place with me than the kids that don't, I mean, I know that might come off wrong, but it's like, you don't have to do that, right? I'm still going to coach Joe Blow, who doesn't go to my school, as hard as I'm going to coach you, right? But for you to say, hey, I'm gonna do this, I think that says something about your character. And to me, again, at the end of the day, I think character is more important than your wins and losses and stuff like that. Right. Would you say you learned that lesson maybe out of wrestling a little bit?
Oh, 100%. Some of the things I remember from wrestling, I've been wrestling, I'm 22 now. I've been wrestling since I was 11, so I've been wrestling 11 years. A lot of the things I kind of remember aren't really like my wins and losses in matches, honestly. There are a lot of the things I remember are like hard practices, like experiences I've had with other people, like my teammates, coaching kids younger than me, like doing things like that. I kind of had more of a memory about, and, thinking about like, I've made it through this, I can make it through that. Honestly.
Coach Sabalas, what I want to bring up, and I'll let you jump in on this, Coach, because I think you'll find it interesting. Jason Duva.
Oh, Jason Duva.
Because Alex was a big fan of Coach Duva, and Coach Duva was a big fan of Alex. Now, Coach Sabalas, do you remember Duva when he was a high school guy?
Of course. He was an Austin kid.
Before I'm going to let you go.
Can't hear you.
You're cut off again. Man, that guy really messed up your computer. Yeah, you got to wring his neck or something for that.
Oh my God, he's a good guy. I like him.
Hope he didn't charge you.
Yeah, I hope so.
I want him lunch though, but now he's talking. He's a good.
You better get that back.
Listen, it was a couple weeks ago. He's really gonna. Hopefully, it's staying in the All right. So anyway, dude, don't forget. I got no time for this bull crap. But what I was saying was, Duva and Coach Chavelis, you will know better than me. But as a high school guy, he was crazy. Like he wasn't like this pitcher.
He was a fun-loving guy. I went to Empire State games with him, and he was the kind of guy you wanted to hang out with for a while. But then when he got too bad, you wanted to get away because somebody was coming to check on the situation.
Yeah.
So, but he was funny. He's a good guy.
Isn't it
Great coach. He was a great modified youth coach as well.
Yeah.
I love Duva. I'll let Alex speak on him too. But the point of that, me saying that to you, DeBellis, is I find it interesting how wrestling could do that. Right? Like, yeah, he was a crazy little guy, right? He was getting in trouble. He was doing stuff maybe he probably shouldn't have been doing or whatever. But he met a kid like Alex, right? And at that time, he was obviously a grown man. He had his own family. And, of course, he was taking business. But it's not to say – I don't know if you ever heard this, and I said his soft side. He'd probably be like, what are you saying my soft side for? And really care about a guy like Alex, I found, that was wrestling. Wrestling did that. Wrestling created that, that love back and forth between those two guys, and he cared about Alex. And he was, he's working with Alex with the pools and stuff. He got props. He really cared about the kid, and I think that wrestling does that differently than other sports. And not to say Drew was a bad kid. He was a crazy kid. He was a silly guy. He probably had a lot of energy, and God knows. But
he was fun. Duva was a fun guy.
And I hope actually Duva does listen to this. I might send it to him. But great guy, great coach, great friend. I haven't talked to him as much as I probably like to at this point. But because Luka doesn't really wrestle that much anymore, kind of does. But he's in and out. But I just think it's so interesting that a guy that probably cared about himself in high school, and he wanted to have fun, and he wanted to do this and that. He cares so deeply about Alex. When Alex was in high school, I think wrestling does that, and I think it's such a great sport for things like that. But you could talk a little bit, Alex, about your relationship with Coach Duva.
Sure. I mean, I have a picture on my wall here of me after I won sectionals. I jumped into Duva's arms, Jason's arms. I've got a picture of me doing it, and that's the one on my wall. I mean, I remember meeting Jason. I was maybe a sophomore or a freshman or something. And I didn't really know who he was. He was just kind of like a coach, and I was wrestling with him. And I was just kept wrestling. And he was like getting tired, and I was like, "Are you okay? You're like looking a little sick." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And so like he wanted to be more involved, and like I think John was like, "Hey, like I have a kid that's just a tank, and he'll work like an animal. Like, give him a shot." And so I started working with him and his dad, and they were like, "Man, I guess he's a hard worker," and they just. They took me in as part of their own family. Like they treated me really well. They would check in on me. They would give me, they loved having me around. Jason was one of my role models from the club. He was someone that was, he was I considered him as coach, or as much as I viewed you or John, honestly. I'm trying to think of some funny stories from Jason. I mean, here's one you probably love was I remember one day we were supposed to go to like an off-season tournament, right? And John had told me I could wrestle like 195. He's like, "You're going to wrestle 195." And I was like, "Okay." And I was probably like 193 or something. And then so I'm like kind of just drilling the night before, like working out just because I wanted to work out. And then John comes in and he goes, "Melikian, you're going 182 tomorrow." I go, "What?" And he goes,
I remember this.
He goes, "I don't think you were there." This was like 8 p.m. and it was like me and like my brother and like maybe Drew Longo or something, like, you weren't there.
I remember I remember hearing this story, I think, though, but go on.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I'm starting to cut weight. Like I'm my balls off. I'm have to cut 10 pounds tonight. Right. And so Jason comes in with Duva because with Luca, because Luca has to cut weight, and he goes to my brother. He goes, "What's up with Melikian? He's looking pretty miserable." And Sam tells him what's going on, and Jason goes, "I'll get him to start sweating." And so Jason goes, "Hey, Malik, come here." And so I walk over to him, and then he just grabs my head and throws me in a headlock. He's just holding me on the mat. He's like, "Yeah, that'll build, like that'll get you sweating." Like Like he's like holding me on my back while I'm trying to get off, and I'm like, after 2 minutes of like strangling me there, and he goes, "Oof, I'm tired," but like, all right, go keep wrestling. But I was pouring sweat off my body, but
I guess it worked. Did you make weight?
I did make weight.
Dude was
I did make weight.
probably. I mean, this was probably nothing to you because in the time it just felt natural. But what happened with Duve, and I think I talked about this before.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so Luca came to the club at the same time like PJ came to the club. It was like that time, like they were first graders or kindergartners, they were babies. And at the time, John had the youth practice split in twos. So he had on his side, he had Chris Perry, Tyler Aldis, Luca Erico, like that crew over there. On my side, I had Luca Duva, PJ, Abby, Matty Lopes, like those kids. And one day, it was me and Danny Hall for a second, and Danny stopped doing it or whatever. It was just me. And I was coming late from Greeley and stuff. It was tough. So Duva was like biting at the bit to get on the mat, right? But he was good. He wasn't trying to be like the guy or whatever. Long story short, Jason ended up helping me with that crew, like Luca and PJ and all those guys. And then John needed me to help him with like the Luca Aricos and Chris Perry's and those guys. So as I kind of worked my way over to that side, Jason took over that side, right? So
and what did John do?
John delegated.
John delegated. There was some cheeseburger or something. I don't know. Something happened. So anyway, so like, no, I'm just kidding. John was there. He was around. He was doing something, maybe lessons or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
But so that happened. So Jason became really a real coach. He became our youth coach, and he became a really good youth coach. Like Empire Youth at that time got really good, like really, really good. Like, we would go to tournaments and we would dominate and stuff like that. He was great. He was really good. And the funny thing that, bringing it full circle. So at this point, he's a coach, right? I'm doing my thing on one side. He's doing his thing on the other side. 7 o'clock practice started, and that was the high school guys, right? And now that was me, right? So I'm doing that practice. But all of a sudden, I would look to the right, and I'm doing practice. Like, Duval, like, he liked high school kids, but he wasn't really involved with them other than Alex, right?
Yeah.
So I would look to the right, and I would see Alex and Duva just going at it. Like a half hour, and they'd be drenched, and Duva would give Alex everything he had. It might not have been enough, but he was like probably 40 or so at the time. Busting his hump and going so hard. And I remember looking at him and being like, man, Duva's tough. I like Duva. He's tough. Guys, how many battles did you two have, Alex? You guys probably wrestled.
We did it a lot. We'd go. He wasn't, he was good for a few minutes and he'd have to kind of take a break. So we'd go. And like during those like first few minutes, though, it's like an onslaught where I had to fight him off. He was just so friggin'. I've never wrestled a stronger man in my life. I mean, he would just grab my leg and rip it off. So I was like, I have to keep him from just grabbing my leg and ripping it off. So we pretty much just like brawled. It was pretty much like a brawl, and we'd just be going at it. And
I miss him. I miss having him around. Maybe I will send him this interview and say, hey, when are you gonna get your butt back to practice? Here's Malik's interview.
Yeah, he was great at the club. He brought he brought his own unique mentality that you don't really see. Like he has his own mentality of just like he hates losing. He hates losing.
We could use him now, and that's not a disrespect to Alex Dela Cruz, who's the youth coach right now. Alex is an unbelievable coach. Yeah. But I think Alex is more well served for the older kids, because Alex is so good. I think Alex, he's so technical. He knows how to wrestle. Yeah. I think he could grab like the good, like a Chris Perry now as a senior and really take him to the next level rather than wrestling with a fourth grader. I think a Duva would be that guy that could honestly, and coach, you're gonna laugh about this and be like, oh no, whatever. Do you know what the best mix at youth at Empire would be? Mike DeBellis and Jason Duva would be the best mix. Yeah. Because I'm telling you right now, because Mike DeBellis is the man. He loves wrestling. He knows it's just crap, obviously, but he could get the kids smiling. He could get the kids laughing. He could keep them engaged. And on the other side of the turnbuckle there is Duva, who will have the kids laughing and having fun, but he's very serious. He's tough. He's hard. And Coach DeBellis is very tough too, but they're different approaches, right? He's very boom, boom, boom. So to have me and John kind of, right? To have both sides of the table there, I think would be the best for the youth.
Oh,
But the Greeley Youth Prizes, I hate it. I suck at it. Coach DeBellis is the guy. You know, I watch it. I'm like, I don't have the patience for it. You know, I get mad. I get annoyed. It's like I expect kids to know things that they probably shouldn't know. You know, like why do I expect that? But I guess that's just my nature. But
because we go over the same move every single practice.
Jason's great at like getting the kids disciplined and getting to focus and do things that they might not want to do. Like, how do you tell a fourth grader, or an 8-year-old kid to like get strong and do push-ups? Like, they don't want to do push-ups really. They don't want to do anything that makes them slightly uncomfortable. But how are you going to be good?
Alex, you know what he did though, which was interesting?
What?
He would push them really hard.
You would push them really hard. I mean,
but he would have like everybody had a nickname. Everybody was like, Tim Dog was Timmy Duke, and like Killer Kelly was Matt Kelly. Like everybody had something. Like there was that bond that he was able to kind of create that I found pretty interesting too, where he like the kids really liked him. They wanted to have a nickname from him. You know what I mean? They wanted to feel like almost accepted by him.
Yeah. Which I was Slick Malik.
Slick Malik, yeah, I remember.
I was Slick Malik. Yeah, no, I mean,
as a college student, you still remember that, right? So obviously he did a really good job. I miss that guy.
Oh my God, I miss him. I gotta text him. I gotta see how he's doing.
But anyway, let's jump into your senior year. Then we'll do a little college. Then we'll wrap this sucker up. So
okay.
Your senior year, a lot of pressures on the board, right? Because you're two-time runner-up. You're at Lakeland,
right.
Section 1 down. I remember as a high school coach being excited that you were in Section 1. I'm like, I get to watch Alex Russell some more. This is cool. Like, whatever. But I do remember that Evan Frank was in your weight class. So I'm like, Evan's tough. And in my head, and no disrespect to Evan if he's watching this, I had, which I doubt he probably isn't anymore. Maybe he is. I loved Evan, but they were different built. Alex was more my kind of guy, where Alex was kind of in the trenches. I kind of like that mentality, maybe a little bit better, which is fine. No disrespect, like I said. But I was a little nervous for Alex. I thought Alex was going to win, like he did. I definitely, if you asked me to bet, I would have bet on Alex in the beginning of the season. And even when he lost, I still would have continued to bet on Alex. But I was nervous. There was a thought like, geez, this kid's not bad either. This is a thing. This is definitely a thing. What was your whole approach? It's an interesting thing, like a club mate that you train with that you know very well. How did that whole dynamic go for you? Like seeing him at practice, like whatever it may have been. Like, how did that work?
Well, I'm trying to think. I think one of Evan's first day at the club, actually, I had shown him and like a couple other John Jay guys how to use the Atom dummy. I think actually one of their first times. So I remember like kind of coaching him a little bit and wrestling with him a little bit throughout it. I think closer on like the year, we didn't really wrestle as much anymore because again, we were, I guess you could say, rivals for lack of a better word.
Yeah, you knew you were going to wrestle each other.
So we didn't really train with each other. I mean, but the nice thing about John's is that there's generally so many partners that we don't have to wrestle each other, honestly. It's not like, I can get great workouts in with other guys. I can't, like, it's not like the next, there's Evan Frank and then the next best kid is a JV kid, right? I had a ton of really great guys to train with and he had a ton of great guys to train with. I think there was maybe a little bit of tension because we were both competing. Like we both wanted to win and we were both competitive people, especially on my part because I wanted to win. It was my senior year. Like, get the fuck, get out of my way. I'm going to win.
Yeah.
But, like, it was just wrestling, And at the end of the day, like, you can be competitive in wrestling, but, off the mat or anything like that, I didn't harbor anything against him. In my mind, like, I think leading up into the matches and stuff, I was like, I work harder, I'm going to win. And that's always been my mentality with everybody. Usually I wrestle, like, I work harder than you. Like I said before, like if I go 100 miles an hour every single day, I'm going to beat you because you can't keep up with me.
Well, I think a lot had to do with the haircut you had as well.
Oh yeah. That was a Totora and Duva inspired haircut. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You remember that?
I think Duva told you just like shave a line. I'm like, you should leave patches.
Yeah. So because I used to like shave it down just before like big tournaments because it was kind of just like a way for me to kind of get in a zone. I thought it was kind of fun and silly, so I just do it. And then you guys were like, "You won't leave like just a patch. You won't do it." And so I was like, "Oh yeah."
No, if you do it, you're gonna win sections, right? Did
Yeah,
you say something like that?
It was something basically like saying like
you have like child abuse on my part.
So, but I did it, and I left this line in my hair, and people would look at me and they'd be like, "What the hell are you?" I was like, "It's a racing stripe." It makes me so mad. They couldn't say anything to me because, they just watched me text the kid, they watched me in the semifinals just text somebody. So they were like, how can we say anything against this kid when he's, he could probably
beat you up. What was the score, by the way, with you and Evan your senior year? I forgot. It was a close-ish match.
It was close. It was overtime.
It was overtime, yeah.
Yeah, it was
that
overtime.
was we knew going into that match that if Evan didn't win that match, he would have a battle to get into the state tournament, and
Yeah, I didn't even know that, honestly, that I was gonna have a battle again in the state tournament.
Well, I don't know if those the Catholic school points would have counted.
Well, think about this, Coach Sabellis. Alex took second that year. Evan took third.
Yeah.
Like,
that's pretty crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it was basically the state semifinals and the section finals, right? Like,
right.
It was that caliber of,
Yeah, your mic's out. Your mic's out. I can't hear you at all.
What the fuck? Can you hear me?
That caught.
I thought you were caught in a glass box of emotion.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Man, this episode's off the rails. Again, Alex Melikian needs I'll bring Alex on to co-host for another episode or something. Okay. He needs more airtime. But what was I gonna say? But I wanted Alex to win that match. And again, not to knock it out. Evan was a junior. Alex was a senior. Alex might not have gotten the wild card. We weren't sure what was going to happen there, right? So I remember watching that match with a lot of nerves, right?
Yeah.
It was weird because I couldn't show him. Right? As much as I cared, I couldn't. It was like Quincy and Tyler this year, and to them I didn't really care either or who won because I cared both kids pretty much equally there at that point, but. I couldn't show any emotion because it was two guys that were club mates. And, as a coach, I was like, holy shit, this is rough. This is a rough one. But when Alex got the win, we knew everyone was going to wild card. It was the best. Yeah. And when Alex ended up taking second and Evan ended up taking third, it just showed the caliber that was coming out of the club. I think that was a good thing. Alex, was foul ball around at that time? Were you guys all the same?
Yeah, we were. I think foul won New England a couple times at that point or something like that.
And Johnny Garcia around that weight. We were really good around that size in the club.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your state tournament, Alex. How'd that go?
I'm trying to think. Well, I had wrestled like a Long Island kid, a Section 11 kid at first. And all my matches were honestly decently close. I think I was wrestling. I had a sprained groin actually during the state tournament. So I was just kind of looking just to stretch and just kind of feel good. So I think I was trying not to overexert myself too much because I was kind of in pain. So I was looking to just wrestle smart and not let people rip my leg off. And so I think I wrestled a Section 11 kid, and I beat him. It was a close match. But, for the most part, I'd wrestle, and then I'd go into the locker room. I think you remember that. We had our little hideaway in the locker room, and I'd just go in the locker room, and I'd lay down, and I'd relax. And then I warmed up, and then I forgot who I wrestled next. It might have been Mike Spallina or – I don't know, or Kendall Elfstrom. I'm not sure who I wrestled next.
These names, now I remember all of them. That was right?
Yeah. I'm not really sure. I remember beating those guys, and then it went to the finals. Parker. And honestly, Parker kind of put a beat down on me.
It was a bad matchup,
Yeah.
It's something that if you, more times at it, the better it would have been kind of thing. But, he was a good high school. He was a really good high school wrestler, that kid.
Yeah, Parker was a tough kid. He was a nice guy. He was a great guy too. I still see him around in college at tournaments and stuff. And he's friendly. We'll go, hey man, what's up? How you doing? Friendly kid.
Do you know what's interesting, Alex? And Coach, I want you to jump in on this before we get into college and talking maybe about state finals reaction after that. But that class was my first real class of really good guys. That I was involved with, right? Like the Brian Rebutos and stuff. He was a senior when he was a junior my first year coaching. I wasn't really in his. That was his thing with Max and John and whatever he was doing. But Alex, who was in your class coming out of the club?
It was a lot. It was me, Adam, Mike DiNardo, Mike Larm, Khalid. I'm trying to think of all the guys. There's a lot.
Was Jay Albus in that crew? No, Jay was a little young.
Jay Albus was a little older than me, I believe. Evan Frank,
Brad was probably older.
Matt Grippy.
Not Matt Grippy.
He didn't graduate, but he was at the state tournament and took second at the states that year, I remember.
Sophomore.
Yeah, sophomore.
Yeah, but, so it's crazy thinking about that, Coach, because I remember so many things about that state tournament. I remember Alex, getting to the finals, being really excited about it. I remember DiNardo, I remember worrying about him. I remember Adam losing the semis to a kid that he majored at Eastern, and I was in his corner for that. So many emotions from that, but for me, that was like the first class. Like, I was Justin Lopez, Khalid, of course, those guys. That was the first group, and Khalid still says this to this day, is that's the first group that I really kind of came in there, and it wasn't just John, right? That was the first group that it was like I was very much involved with, so I'll never forget that group, right? And especially Alex, well, I mean, Adam, of course, because he's my cousin, but especially Alex, because he was that guy. Like, he bought into everything we wanted him to buy into. He worked his tail off from start to finish. But, a question for you, Alex, is I don't know if you ever heard the story, but when Jacob Ferrer, who I compare a lot to you, like a lot of similarities between the two, when he lost in the state finals, he was doing his cool down. And I asked him, I'm like, you okay? All that stuff. And he's like, you know what? The lessons I learned in the Willie room and the Empire room are more important. And I'll beat this kid eventually, and I'm not done. And, it is what it is. And, something like that, along those lines. And I was very proud of him. I'm like, you really grew a lot. I was happy that he said that. I was almost emotional. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's such a grown thing to say as an 18-year-old. And a guy that has similar mentality, right? How did you handle that loss in the finals? So we never really talked about that. And I didn't follow you back to the back room or anything like that. I don't remember if I did. I don't think I did.
Right.
So how did you handle that? Because we never really talked about that. I'm curious.
Right. I think, I was upset, but in my own way, I was still proud of myself that I had managed to make it to the state finals. It was a goal that I would get there, and I knew I lost to a kid that wasn't a schmuck. I knew Kevin Parker was pretty tough, and I knew I had worked my hardest to get there, and I knew I worked hard in the match, and I knew that I was like, well, I didn't do great, but I didn't win, but I've worked really hard, and I was like, I still have Flow Nationals coming up, and I was like, and I can wrestle there and I can beat him there. And I'm like, and I'm going to wrestle in college. And I'm like, and I can be an All-American and I can be a national champ. I didn't see a state title as the be-all, end-all of my success and who I am as a person.
Which is the hard way to think, because now as a 33-year-old and Coach Chappelle says a 34-year-old.
35.
35-year-old, I tell this to kids all the time, right? Wrestling ends eventually. It's going to end. You can't be 50 years old and still competing, really, right? Other than that guy that I wrestled at that tournament, Coach. But what are you going to get from it, right? Right. You said, and I feel like, Alex, you've gotten everything you should get from it. You did the right thing. But your mentality is, hey, I worked my tail off and I got here. But when you're done wrestling, I feel like if you continue to work your tail off, you're going to get what you want to get in that side of the world. And I hope eventually that, more kids start to understand that, right? I want to win. Coach Chappelle knows we've lost some tough matches and I've been bitter about it for a bit, but it doesn't end the end goal. The end goal is how do we continue to improve and get better as people? I think that's the most important thing. But real quick, guys, I don't want to keep you too much longer.
Yeah.
How did you transition from high school to college? And because Empire, I feel like, prepares us pretty good for college. Did you feel ready once you got to Binghamton kind of for what they were?
Yeah. I remember, honestly, compared to kind of my high school grind a little bit, the college grind was honestly a little easier for me. I mean, the practices were still hard, but they weren't either what I've been through with John already, so that I wasn't really thrown off balance. I mean, the level of wrestling was much harder, don't get me wrong. Yeah. So that took an adjustment, but I wasn't having to, I had the weight room available to me, at this college. I had to wake up, I could go to the weight room and I could lift, with the team lift. And then, they had a small breakfast I could get. I had someone that would do my laundry there. The practices were pretty regular and I had great partners all the time. So I wouldn't have to worry about scheduling extra practices in with other people. I had more resources available to me, honestly, in college to kind of make me more focused on my wrestling career. So the caliber of wrestling was much harder, it's took a little bit to adjust to that. I mean, I was used to the practices. I was used to being tired. So, the only thing I had to really catch up on was my technique.
I really hope that I know this is probably your last year competing, even though this year's like a weird, like,
Yeah.
you kind of have the year back kind of thing, but you're going to graduate and probably go on with your life. But I feel like as long as you stay confident and you believe in yourself, you're still capable of a lot of great things this year. I'm really excited to watch you go compete. I know you got to jump over a couple hurdles now, but it's not the end of the world, and you will, as you always have, which is great. But, what I find interesting too about you, Alex, is what are you majoring in right now?
Biology and environmental science.
Well, that's not easy, right? And to be able to do that and wrestle a Division I type schedule is pretty impressive. How do you do that?
Time management, honestly. I know it's still corny, but I mean, I have like 2 whiteboards on my wall, and I have one for the month and I have one for the week. And I look at my syllabus at the beginning of every month, and I look what assignments I have, and I write them out a month or 2 ahead of time, so I can see when they're coming up 2-3 weeks ahead. And I have my schedule written. Like last year, I'd have my schedule written out. I'm like, all right, we're competing at West Point Saturday. We're leaving Friday. So if I have an essay due Saturday, I'm not going to be able to get it done. So I better work on it during the week. And so, I'd plan my weeks out like that in my head, and I'd plan it on my board. I plan like, all right, well, like I have this work due and I have this due. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to, wrestle a tournament on Saturday and then hand in my full, then work on a 5-6 page paper or a full lab assignment and hand it in on Sunday at midday. Like, I just won't, I'll burn myself out if I try to do that. So I really planned everything out, and I planned my days out. I'd say I'd wake up at 6:30 and I'm going to go lift at, 7:30, and then I'll be out at 8:30, and then I can eat, shower, and then I'll have class. And then, I'll have 2-hour break, and I can do my homework in that 2-hour break, and then I'll practice, and then I'll have some time to relax, and then I can get more homework done. And like, I have to get this many pages done. I've got to get this much work done before the end of the day so I can stay on top of it, and so I don't, drown under the workload and the wrestling.
Well, that's why I need to get myself away.
That is not the typical day of a American college student.
No.
But it is a typical day of an American college Division I athlete.
People don't understand that, Coach, right? Like, I feel like that these.
I think they do. I think anybody that's been to college and seen any of their friends compete on any team, they know that we're different because we're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Coach, we talk about this all the time. We both are teachers, right? And we'll be at school, and I'll hear people complaining. I'm like, what are you talking about? And, like, then what Alex just said, right? Like, Alex would work these guys under a table. It's not even, like, remotely close. But
well, that's why when a job interview comes up and you mention that you're a wrestler, anybody in the know will hire you. Just off that one thing.
Alex, you're hired. Whatever you want. All right. But so we'll wrap this sucker up, Alex. But I'll let you get last words. But D, you can say a little thing for Alex. I'll say something, then we can wrap it up. Go ahead, D.
Give me my phone.
Alex, my favorite time watching you was when you won the section title, and I don't think you guys get out of here. Look at this.
Look at this guy. What's up, man?
Okay,
Nikki.
Well, anyway, what I was saying was that my favorite time was watching you react after you won a section title. You walked around there for about a half hour, hugging and smiling, and I think you had your singlet on the entire, or maybe your headgear on. I don't know what it was. Something was kind of like either you had your headgear on the whole time or your singlet, and you were just walking around, and it wasn't an arrogant thing. It was just like, hey, I'm elated to be the section champ. I worked hard. And it wasn't disrespectful. It was just, you could tell that you were super happy about what you did. So, but your whole aura, you got a good aura behind you, and you're going to make a very positive impact on the world. I'm just happy to know you, and good luck to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach.
You know what's funny, Coach, about that what you were saying is there's that picture of Duva, but after we hugged Duva, I got a hug like 5 or 30 seconds later.
Wait 5 minutes.
And I remember being excited that, to get that hug that he won the section title. But I also remember being like, Jesus Christ, this guy is gross. He is so seriously right now. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
but we were obviously very proud of you. But what I was Alex is that obviously I'm super proud of you. I'm proud of you for what you
Get out.
do.
Get out. Do this thing. Get out.
Give me my phone.
Get out. Give me the phone now. Give it to him now. Get out of here.
Should have you.
I gotta show
Sorry.
you. Don't worry.
Did you hear me in the back?
Yes. He was off the rails. But anyway, real quick, I wish I had my phone because I gotta show you guys a funny picture, but I don't have my phone with me. But very proud of you, Alex. I remember from day one when I first met you, I was like, holy cow, this kid is a hard worker. And to see you kind of reach one of your goals, winning the section title, I thought was really a spectacular thing. For you to get to the state finals, I thought that was another spectacular thing. To watch what you're doing in college, I want you to be an All-American. I want you to be a national champion. There's still time to do what you could do this year. You have this opportunity now, and you got to take advantage of your opportunities. But, if it all ended today, I would still be proud of you. You stuck with it. You became a captain of a Division I program. You had a lot of respect. A lot of people look up to you. When Shriver went there, Shriver could handle his own crap. But talking to Alex a couple times to make sure that Matt was okay. Alex was all about it. He's that guy. He'll go do that and make sure that Matt's good. He'll do the same with Matt Kelly, any younger guy that comes into the program. He's gonna look out for them. So to me, at the end of the day, Alex got what he needed to get out of wrestling, right? Like hopefully he does get some success because that's fun, right? We like to have fun. We like to win. But the more important thing, the character. The mindset, like he's got that. So when wrestling's over, and I say this about some other guys too, but when wrestling's over, I'm not worried about Alex Melikian, right? He's gonna figure it out. He's gonna work his tail off, and he's gonna be successful. And like Coach DeBella said before, he's gonna bring a positive impact into people's lives. Even if he's not coaching and teaching like me and Coach DeBella do, it doesn't matter. He could be in an office, and some person could be going through a hard time, and they could talk to Alex for 5 minutes, and that's gonna change their demeanor and maybe their trajectory just because of the best things. But anyway, Alex, you got the last words, my man.
All right, let me think. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what you said about wrestling and how it builds character. I think that's the biggest thing I've gotten out of wrestling is like the friendships I've made, the relationships I've made with role models. Something I think that's not really talked about. I grew up with a single mother, and in wrestling, I had a lot of male mentorship in my life. I had a lot of people that filled in that role of a father figure to me, and and they cared more than just because I was an athlete. They cared about who I was. Guys like you, guys like you, Coach DeBellis, guys like John Deagle, Jason Dula, Mr. Perry. I mean, I can rattle off names, endless amount of people that were there for me to support me. And I think that's something important to think about. From wrestling, I've gained a lot of confidence in who I am. I know that I work hard, and I know that, if I put my mind, it's given me the confidence to know if I put my mind to something, I can get it done. So again, but I just want to thank you guys for having me on this. So, I had a great time talking with you guys.
Yeah, Alex, you were great. I wish my computer wasn't crap. I wish I wasn't going to beat up Nick over there and Jake. We might.
Oh, they're gonna get a beat.
We might fight.
They got boxing gloves. They're hitting each other with boxing gloves, stealing each other's phones.
Wait, hold on. So I'll wrap this up and then stay on for a second, D. But I appreciate you coming to me. I feel like they should listen to your interview because you are that guy. You worked from nothing to something, and you cared, and you did your thing. Alex, hang on for a second.
Okay.
Hang on. I'm gonna stop recording.